My name's Carol Liston and I'm the President of the Royal Australian Historical Society for 2015-16. We are very excited that we received a grant to commemorate the crossing of the Blue Mountains and the arrival of European settlement at Bathurst in 1815. Now, 200 years later, it's a chance for us as a society to remind people of the importance of settlement beyond the Blue Mountains and to consider some of the impact of those historical events. Crossing the Blue Mountains in 1813 was an exciting opportunity for the convicts and colonists and soldiers who lived in New South Wales. But it was really more than 10 years later before the real impact of that was noticeable. Nevertheless, after the crossing in 1813, Governor Macquarie had instructed surveyor George Evans to find a route for a road, and then William Cox to build a road from the Nepean River across the mountains to a place that he called Bathurst. 2015 marks the 200th anniversary of the foundation of the inland town of Bathurst. But what did that really mean? In some ways, it was a bit frightening for the authorities because suddenly there was a way out of the convict prison on the coast, a way inland where perhaps many people, some convicts and others, thought China might be, or an inland sea. They didn't know. For the authorities, it became clear that movement across the mountains had to be controlled, and you really required permission to go over the mountains for the first decade after Bathurst was founded. But by the early 1820s, there was another opportunity evident. One was a stronger recognition by the British authorities of the importance of fine wool as an export item from the New South Wales colonies. The other was the presence of increasing numbers of free immigrants, particularly young men with money, and they were entitled under the rules of settlement at the time to have considerable sized land grants, 2,000 acres or so. The combination of pressure from free settlers and the opportunity to make money by grazing sheep beyond the mountains led to a rapid interest in settling beyond the Blue Mountains in the 1820s. In the middle of the 19th century, the discovery of gold in the western regions near Bathurst triggered another burst of population and new settlers to beyond the mountains. The mountains themselves provided ample places for the discovery of gold, and gold was a magic word that brought people not only from Sydney and elsewhere in the Australian colonies, but from around the world. And the diversity of people who lived and worked beyond the Blue Mountains increases significantly after the discovery of gold. More people means more towns mean more services, and so you start to see other industries emerging, such as flour milling and brewing of beer. You start to see the authorities looking at expanding the transport networks to access lands that could be used for farming as well as grazing. And so the latter part of the 19th century sees a blossoming of many small towns where people lived close to the areas that they were farming, where the selection laws allowed small settlers to take up portions of land in smaller quantities than what you would need for sheep grazing. And for those new settlers, their person power, their manpower, was the important commodity they had. And so small settlements thrived because farms needed so many people to work on them. It's that latter part of the 19th century that we see a profusion of small schools, small churches, smaller settlements that in fact have now disappeared off the map as our rapid transport by car and truck means that those settlements are no longer economically viable. The Royal Australian Historical Society was fortunate to be funded for a program in 2013 that commemorated the crossing of the mountains by Blaxland, Lawson and Wentworth. But at that time we felt that simply to tell the story of the explorers was to miss the point about the significance for Australian history of crossing the Blue Mountains and the expansion of settlement that followed after it. We were also aware that the Society's collections included a wonderful array of books, documents, photographs about inland settlement. And so we were very fortunate when we applied to the Office of Environment and Heritage to get a grant to make our research collections more broadly available for others who wanted to know something about beyond the Blue Mountains. And that was the genesis of a project to put on our website a range of resources to assist everyone, whether at school or doing family history or university study, to just give them a starting point in this aspect of our history.